let's continue with for each loop. But before we start, there is something very important I need to tell you. Until now, every time we declared a variable, we had to specify before the name of the variable the type of it. For example, int, type int, the name of the variable is number 1, and the value is 3. And another example, str1, this is the name of the variable of type string, and the value is high. So every time we had to specify the type of the variable. But here we see that we do not specify the type of the variable. We use here the word var, which means variable, and we do not specify which type it is. Yes, because the program allows us to use the word var instead of using the type we want for the variable, and the program knows by itself which type it is supposed to be by the value on the right side. The program decides the type of the variable on the left side of the equal sign by the value on the right side. So in this case, because of the value is on the right side is 5, then the program knows that we do not specify a type here. So the program knows that the program needs to decide. And by the right side 5, the program decides for us that this variable number 2 is of type int. And in this example, on the right side of the equal sign we have a string. So although we do not specify that this variable is of type string, we just wrote a var, the program knows by itself that this variable is of type string, and we can use it in the program as we use a string variable, and we use string variable, and this variable we can use in the program also as any int variable. And also here, because that number 1 is of type int, so on the right side of the equal sign we have a type int. So the left side, the program knows that number 3 is also of type int. Because we assign this value to this variable, so no program knows that this variable must be a type int also. And here also, because that str1 is of type string, so on the right side we have a string variable. So the variable on the left side also program knows that it must be a string variable. So this is a string variable. So the previous lesson we learned an example of a string variable, a string array, and we looped through the string array using the syntax string item variable called item of type string in cities, and we loop through these cities elements using the item variable. Every time another value populate this variable. But usually we don't see the syntax string item in cities. Usually we see it like this, var item in cities. So in this case, because that cities is array of strings, so the program knows that every time, in every iteration, the item is of type string. Because on the right side we have the cities, which is string array, and every element is of type string. So every time on the right side we have an element of type string. So item is also of type string. So as I said, usually every time we see that this syntax is being used, not string item but var item. And also in case of int array, int array. We have an array of 5 elements. And the for each also here, the previous lesson we saw that we use the int item, the int type, to declare of the item of type int. But actually we don't need it. We are using here usually every time we see in the program we use the var item in age array. And the program knows that item here in this for each, this variable item will be of type int, because we are iterating over the elements here of type int. So every time we take another element and put inside item. So item must be of type int.